If you rewind the tape, I was screaming like it was real exciting, you know. I was just so overjoyed about the catch and making the play.
But Rasheed Davis was never supposed to even be here. He didn't play a down of organized football until junior college.
This is kind of embarrassing. I really didn't know how to put all my pads and everything on, and shoot, I didn't know anything really about running routes. I had never run a 40 in my life.
Even after he learned to dress and run, at 5'9", he wasn't exactly considered NFL material coming out of San Jose State. So in 2002, Davis joined the Arena League, making about $250 a week and working part-time at a Best Buy. 3 seasons later, he was scoring 44 touchdowns on his way to becoming the San Jose SaberCats MVP. What do you think the Arena League did for you as a player now?
I learned especially how to get open against man coverage in the arena, because that's all there is. Learn how to create space, because in the arena there is no space.
Last season, Davis was invited to try out for the Bears, but as a defensive back and kick returner. His only cracks at wide receiver came on the scout team. But as the Bears prepared for their divisional playoff game, Davis made the most of it.
The week of the Carolina Panthers game, I was Steve Smith for that week, and I made some plays in practice, and that's when I think they decided to go ahead and move me over.
You could see him really, you know, that's where his natural position was at, and that's where he needed to be.
As the Bears' third receiver, Davis has shown in the clutch, making key late-game receptions. But he still hasn't run away from his past. In October, the New Orleans Voodoo claimed his rights in an Arena League expansion draft.
They kept roasting me a little bit all week about me getting picked up in the expansion draft.
He was like the 11th or 12th pick. I was like, Rasheed, you play in the NFL, and you got drafted 12th. I was like, you're supposed to be the first one to go.
When you look back at your story, what kind of odds would you give it that this could pan out for you?
Coming in as a walk-on in junior college to be in the NFL, it's got to be $1 million to 1.
All right, Rachel, thank you. Certainly an X factor last week. Rasheed Davis and the big catch on the throw from Grossman. They win on a field goal. X factors today, either games. Pick one, Tom.
Chicago and the Saints. I think that Devin Hester has to have, and he's the X factor. He's an obvious X factor because he's so good. Had 6 returns for touchdowns in the kicking game, but last week, 3 punt returns, 5 yards, 2 muffs, bundled punts. He has got to be a contributor. They don't want to break even in special teams. They want him to be a big plus for the Chicago Bears trying to score those 30 points.
Well, my X factor is Bernard Berrian, and I'll tell you why. The Saints play a lot of press, man-to-man coverage. This guy has the speed and the moves to get open. He makes big plays down the field. He will be a big factor today in this football game. Bernard Berrian, remember that name.
Beat twice. Coach, your name. Remember this name, Marcus Colston, probable rookie of the year, rookie of the year kind of guy. 6'4", 231, one of the biggest receivers in the league. Don't worry about the snow today. Drew Brees has played in the snow in college in Purdue. It won't bother him. There's not a corner that the Bears have that can match up with him physically. He can push them around, and he'll make big catches today, even in the snow. Marcus Colston, remember that name.
All right, Steve, let's take a look at the other game, and my X factor is Lawrence Maroney, the running back. I believe he has to have a big game against the Colts defense, and his style is best suited for success against that quick Colts defense. He's a downhill runner with speed and quickness to get through the hole. In the last meeting earlier this year, 13 rushes, 63 yards.
Well, guys, mine is Dallas Clark, and I'm telling you why now. You know New England will come up and be physical with those outside receivers. Dallas Clark, I talked earlier about winning this for Peyton. You will be his security blanket. Get your butt open and make some plays.
He's been big.
I'm
looking across the way in that game at the other tight end, Ben Watson.
That's a good one.
Such a big figure for New England. And if the Bears get a lead, they pound Cedric Benson late, so I get to do one for each game because I can. Y factor, Z factor.
Yeah.
Will be bad.
You're the host.
Yeah.
You're the host.
One postseason failure after another. Do Peyton Manning's teammates still believe he can sizzle in the pressure cooker? And once upon a time, he did it. Steve Young on what it takes to finally get the monkey off your back. Also, an impressive past 2 weeks. But which Colts defense will show up today? Find out next.
Fabulous. For a good, clean feeling, no matter what.
We are the best! Let's go! This game's woo! This game right here is a statement game. Woo! All day long. Woo! Yes, sir. Over. Kill him. Kill him. Let's go, baby. Ice this game. This ball is done. Get us out, baby. Woo!
Welcome back to Sunday NFL Countdown, everybody. And now, Peyton Manning. He's set so many records. It's possible he'll own many of the all-time passing records by the time he hangs them up. He personifies the game, his study of detail, his play calling, classic passing style. He's a winner. Yet, cruel or not, unfair or not, it lingers. Can't win the big one. This postseason, Manning and the Colts have already won 2 postseason games, yet some say that his stats haven't been great. 1 touchdown pass, 5 interceptions. Peyton would answer, correctly I might add, here's a stat, 2-0. And no matter how he does it, if he goes 3-0, there's no question that Monday morning will be a whole new world for Peyton Manning. Here's Tom Rinaldi.
Fires to the right, intercepted, Taiwan!
I certainly feel personally responsible and accountable.
Throws it downfield to Marvin, intercepted.
When you don't win, you know, I take it, like I said, take it personally and feel responsible and accountable.
Joey Porter gets him.
Yeah,
down he goes.
It's not okay, and it's disappointing, and I you know, live and die with every season.
There are many ways to describe Peyton Manning. Player, leader, star. But winner? No, not ultimately, and not this time of year.
The elephant in the room is that Peyton Manning is a postseason choke artist.
The stigma is, yeah, he was great at Tennessee, but he couldn't beat Florida. Yeah, he's been great at Indy, but can't beat Belichick, can't beat the Steelers last year in the playoffs. Everything's at stake for Peyton right now.
The 2 MVPs, the 49 touchdowns.
He throws the Stokely touchdown! That's the record breaker!
Yet Manning is linked to another set of numbers, 5-6, his record in the playoffs. Postseason, his career quarterback rating is lower. Touchdown to interception ratio, worse. Completion percentage, inferior. In the breach between big records and big games, Manning is trapped and measured, fairly or otherwise.
Every quarterback is judged against Joe Montana and Terry Bradshaw and Bart Starr and the guys that have won Super Bowls. That's just the way it is.
No matter what happens, you know, from here on out into the future, I mean, you're still going to be disappointed about those games that we've lost in the playoffs.
With, you know, all the records that he's broken and all the records that he has, unfortunately, you know, a lot of that stuff will be overshadowed by not winning or not making it to the big game.
At least some of the burden is of Manning's own making. As the highest paid player in the history of his team, as the most visible athlete in his sport,
You still got the best arm in the neighborhood.
the expectations of him are seemingly greater than anyone else's.
I don't feel sorry for him because he's the one who decided to become a quarterback. He accepted the 30-some-odd million signing bonus. He's the one doing ads for every conceivable product, so that comes with the territory.
He handles it great, and that's what's great about Peyton is he's a professional, and as much as it probably discourages him, the extra baggage that he has to put up with, I think he handles it very well.
Brady and his famous disbelief, Elway and his helicopter spin, Namath and his #1. For Manning in the postseason, perhaps the lasting image so far is a mere slump of the shoulders.
He's had some great games. This is obviously not one of them.
Given his greatness, the playoffs should be heaven. Instead, it is a purgatory, a place where he faces judgment and still waits for reward.
People talk about, you know, your legacy and whatnot. I mean, that's kind of a deep word for me here as a quarterback getting ready to play a playoff game.
He can change perception forever with one big performance on Sunday night.
The big one is the last one. You know, the biggest game is your last game. And if you win it, then you're Tom Brady or you're Brett Favre or you're Joe Montana. If you don't, there's just something that you didn't get done. That's something Peyton will live with until he wins that last game.
All right, Tom, thank you. Peyton Manning in the postseason is 5-6. In his 6 losses, so remember, none of the wins are computed here. Completion percentage just over 50%, which is not Peyton at all. Only 3 touchdown passes in the 6 losses. Sacked twice a game, not ridiculous. But there you go. Those are not Peyton Manning numbers. So look, it's obvious. How will today affect our perception of Peyton Manning, Tom? What do you think?
You know, I think you heard it. You know, he knows that he has to win the football game, but it's not only Peyton Manning. You know, by extension, it's Coach Dungy. It's the GM, Bill Polian, wonderful men. And I think that they clearly understand that with what is on the line, they have to win this game. And I want to relate a little story. You know, John Elway, Super Bowl 24, I shook hands with him just before game time, and he almost squeezed the blood right out of my hands. And I knew he was going to have a difficult time. They got beat 55-10 by the San Francisco 49ers. So the key here, you know, with everything that's on the line, you got to relax enough to go out and play your game. That's a challenge for Peyton today.
And Peyton understands the reality of this situation. I don't know if there's a player in the National Football League that embraces the history and tradition of the game more than Peyton Manning. He's been around the National Football League his entire life. He knows how big this game is. But I can say this about Peyton. Week in, week out, year in, year out, no one has played the quarterback position better than Peyton Manning. Also, however, he must win a championship to define his career.
And it's hard because he's a champion person. You know what I mean? He's a champion teammate. He is champion in his work ethic. But if you don't win the Super Bowl, we will not be calling you a champion quarterback. And I want you to understand, now, Madison Avenue, they have attached their trailer to Peyton Manning. Cut that meat. They want him to take them all the way to the Super Bowl. And I will say this, Peyton is a Super Bowl away from becoming Michael Jordan.
Well, I tell you, the guy's unbelievable. When you take the history of the NFL and the quarterbacks who play in the game, no quarterback in the last 40 years, I'm going to say, has the responsibility to run an offense that this guy has. He is unbelievable. They give him the offense, and he runs it. He calls the play. It's not an offensive corner. He calls the plays based on what he reads on the field. That's unbelievable. I know you got to win championship. I know.
Thanks, Coach.
He's pretty
I'm glad you know that. I'm glad you didn't say you don't have
Cut that meat.
Thank you for knowing.
Let me ask you a question. Let me ask all you guys a question. Dan Fouts, Dan Marino. I personally, when they were playing, of course they wanted to win. But do you think now, they couldn't win?
Yes.
You do?
Yes, I do.
They're great.
I know they were great players, but I think there still is a perception they were not a championship quarterback.
What I'm trying to say is it's not the end of the world. Although you're a competitor, obviously Peyton would like to win. And nobody knows it better than our number 8, Steve Young.
Someone take the monkey off my back, please.
Well, the monkey came off the back, and then it kept coming up. The gibbons came off, the orangutans came off. 6 touchdown passes, MVP in the Super Bowl against the Chargers. Steve, exhale now. You're with Mort.
Steve, let's forget about the monkey. How does Peyton Manning play this game tonight without feeling a burden of a gorilla on his back?
Well, it's more than even that. It does take your breath away because the more he accomplishes in the regular season, the more MVPs he gets, the more passing titles, the more Pro Bowls. And without a championship, it just adds to it. It adds to it. And at some point, it's going to break, you hope, and today's that day. But how does he handle it? You just have to somehow get through it because there's no way you can ignore it.
How do you play a game like that, though?
You have to hope that some things can go your way. You know Peyton. If it's not going well, you mentioned the shoulders slump, things go bad. You'll know early in this game whether that's gotten to him. You can see how he plays. He plays up and can control, or he'll have the shoulder slump and a big interception that he throws early in the game. Nobody's cheering more for Peyton than me because of what I went through and what it meant for me to actually go to a championship. I know what Peyton's going to feel like. I hope he dances around the field throughout the fourth quarter, end of the fourth quarter with a big victory.
And I know that the Colts feel that Peyton has 5, 7, 10 good years left, Boom, so maybe we'll be talking about this, hopefully not for a long time.
He has time, but there's no time like the present, as you guys know. Now, no coincidence that safety number 21, Bob Sanders, his only game in a 2-month span he played was the game that the Colts beat New England up there, 11 tackles, etc. Jaws takes a look at a little guy who made a huge world of difference on defense.
Colts defensive coordinator Ron Meeks has not changed his scheme for the playoffs. However, what has changed is he now has a healthy Bob Sanders at safety. And Sanders is a very versatile safety. Let me show you Sanders in pass coverage early in the game against the Ravens last week. You'll see Mark Clayton in the slot get a clean release to his route. But you see what happens here. Here comes Bob Sanders, number 21, making the tackle short of the first down. He does a great job of diagnosing the play and making a sure-handed tackle. Sanders has also been tremendous in the running game, diagnosing where the play is going and making plays in the backfield and at the line of scrimmage. You'll see number 21 Sanders in the box on the weak side. He's responsible for the gap inside of Josh Thomas. Once he reads the play, he hits it and makes the play in the backfield. And once again, you see the sure-handed tackle of Bob Sanders against a tough runner in Jamal Lewis. Just watching him and studying him play, you can see he understands what the offense is trying to do, and he gets his other partners in the secondary lined up properly.
Wow, that little man packs a wallop, Jaws, that's for sure. It's not all him, but boy, he's played in the 2 playoff games. They allowed 14 points total. You can see the comparison to the 16 regular season games, but the biggest of the rushing. 173 yards a game in the regular season, under 64 yards in the 2 playoff wins against Kansas City and against the Baltimore Ravens. So, big question, cover 3, Tom and company. Which Colts defense shows up today, regular or post?
I think the postseason Colts show up, and I think that they have played with that energy that Coach Dungy has talked about. They're playing very fast. They're tackling better. I think a lot of that due to the fact that Bob Sanders is back in that lineup. The thing that I would alert them to is the fact that you haven't played great cutback runners thus far in the playoffs, neither Larry Johnson nor Jamal Lewis. But Lawrence Moreeeee has that ability to come out of that back door. I think they have to be a lot more alert on the backside this week, and Corey Dillon breaking tackles and turning them into first downs and moving the chain.
Well, I think neither one of those defenses will show up today. Certainly, you will not do to New England what you have done to those last 2 teams. You're not going to do that. And the Indianapolis Colts will not go all the way back. Lord, please don't let them go all the way back to what they were doing the regular season. So it'll be somewhere in between. Somewhere
Here's the difference.
Oh,
Here's the difference in this. This is the truth. Doubt, confidence. Doubt, confidence. They're playing with more confidence than they played with all year. They're starting to believe that what they're doing is right. They're doing a lot of line stuff, and they are tackling better. This will be a good defense.
Show up with that confidence today, Coach?
It will be.
You've heard it from the wise one. Back to you, Boom.
All right, fellas. Well, will Reggie Bush, national championship game, last couple years now, will he get to the Super Bowl? Here he is as the Saints arriving in Chicago. We'll be back.
2007 reasons to watch a world of sports on Orbit. Exclusively on Orbit ESPN. Break on through with the...
I need to go write some more, and I'll be back. Oh, wait. Excuse me. How about Nebraska? Sorry, dude. Nebraska.
Welcome back to Sunday NFL Countdown, presented by IBM.
Tom, did you have fun last week doing this? Admit it.
Absolutely.
You and I on prime time tonight, right after the AFC game is done at 10:30 or maybe a little earlier. Tune over for a championship game. Right down. Will we be talking about the New Orleans Saints and Drew Brees? There he is, calm, cool, collected, arriving in Chicago. Also calm, cool, and collected in Chicago is our Ed Werder. Back to Soldier Field, Ed.
Boomer, they're just beginning to take the tarp off here. It's cold, windy, and sleeting at the moment. I talked to Saints head coach Sean Payton. He said he and Drew Brees have discussed having the quarterback wear gloves today if the conditions are unbearable, but he said he doesn't think that's going to be necessary. The Saints are aware, of course, that the last 9 Dome teams to play a conference title game outdoors have all lost. That being said, Payton still chose not to have the Saints practice outdoors at all, even though midweek temperatures in New Orleans were in the 40s. Every player I asked about that agreed with the decision. Payton told me he's not concerned about his players having to deal with a football that's hard and slippery.
But I think you have to address the footing. You have to make sure you get the right shoes on and in and out of the cuts, and you get adjusted to the surface. I think that's important.
Been in other places where obviously you deal with wind or rain or snow or whatever it might be. So I think it's still just, I mean, a big emphasis on, obviously, for us offensively, taking care of the ball. Not sure what the conditions will be, but obviously there's always an emphasis on that.
Conditions not good. Payton also has to overcome history. NFC rookie coaches 0-3 in championship games. And an injury update, wide receiver Joe Horn told me yesterday he made sure his uniform was packed and on the team plane. Said he's going to walk into the locker room today, Boomer, peek around the corner and hope it's hanging in the cubicle. I don't think he's playing today, but I think if the Saints make the Super Bowl, he'll be ready to go.
Well, he's been such a big part of that team, Ed. Let's hope we see some of Joe Horn. Thank you. Of course, Sean Payton, what has he done? And he says he's not finished. Sean Payton arriving, Saints ready for business in Chicago. Pretty good stuff for a man in his first year as NFL head coach. Well, with youth and energy and conviction, Sean Payton turned the New Orleans Saints from a ravaged football team representing a ravaged city to the brink of a Super Bowl. It's one of the best stories of this or any other year, as a matter of fact. Fans who even when New Orleans was at its Mardi Gras best, knew to expect the worst when it came to the Saints. 3-13 and nomads to this with a freewheeling offense to fit the New Orleans city style. As ESPN.com's Greg Garber reports, more of this was planned than you think.
Through the first 39 years of their existence, the New Orleans Saints produced only 7 winning seasons and a single playoff win. When Sean Payton was hired as coach last January, his mission was to eliminate the culture of losing.
My job here with the Saints is not going to be just leading the offense. It's going to be leading this team, improving this team the right way, step by step, meticulously.
The first step was to find players of character who could thrive in the city.
It's a difficult place from a challenge of, you've got that whole Bourbon Street, the French Quarter, casino. So there's a number of distractions that can make it more challenging, and I think the key is putting the right people in this environment.
It's a party city, it's all night long, and if you get caught up in that, you can't perform well on the football field. So that's what he preaches.
The next step was conditioning. Hurricane Katrina forced the Saints to play away from New Orleans all last season, and without a consistent place to practice and train, their stamina suffered. So Payton moved his team's training camp to Jackson, Mississippi, where the heat index was often in triple digits.
One of the reasons we went to training camp in Mississippi was to put them through a difficult month, but to get their bodies ready and their minds ready for a tough season.
That's all he kept saying, the harder you work, it'll pay off in the long run. We was in the heat every day. Heat at 100 degrees out there, full pads or whatever.
I think we kind of ignored the heat and just went full bore ahead. And, our players responded to that pretty well. I didn't hear a lot of complaining, at least publicly.
When the Saints emerged from Payton's first training camp, they had 27 new members, changing more than half of their roster. Another step was placing signs throughout the locker room to reinforce the principles learned in training camp. It's an idea inspired by his mentor, Bill Parcells.
Some of those signs are some of the same signs Bill hung in the locker room in Dallas, so we'll steal a great idea now and then, coaches will. But I think it's just important that some of them talk about character, they talk about toughness, they talk about teamwork, all the things that still win.
Peyton passionately believes in these axioms. And now, 1 year later, and 1 win shy of the Super Bowl, so do his players.
He was telling us from day one what he expected from this team. From day one, when he came up in here and he met with the team, what he wanted, what he's looking for, what he's trying to do this year, right now.
We talked a lot about raising the expectations and the standards and all those things that go into winning games, and you've got to do more than just talk about it, and they've been able to answer the bell.
Sean Payton, pretty young-looking 43-year-old, all right? So here he is, first championship game. Same with Lovie Smith, no huddle, NFC game. You guys ready?
Always ready.
Lovie or Payton, which coach more suited to handle big game pressure?
Both of them, but it won't matter. Both of them are.
Nope, both. Make a decision, Coach.
Both.
Waffling again.
Who you got, Tom? Lovie Smith, because he's at home. You better able to handle that pressure when you're in your own backyard.
I like offensive-minded coaches in big games. I'm going to go with Payton.
All right, well, speaking of offense, other side of the ball. Rex Grossman, which one shows up today? The resurrection of Rex Grossman, good or bad Rex Grossman?
I think the good Rex is going to show up today.
It'll be the good, but maybe not good enough.
As long as the horrible Rex Grossman doesn't show up, I think the Bears will be okay. So I'm going to say good.
The Saints secondary can be exploited. I think the good Rex Grossman shows up.
Huh?
Tom said the same thing I said. He just
if the Saints make the Super Bowl, this is the most improbable story in the NFL since when?
The Chiefs beating the Vikings in what, Super Bowl 3, 2, 4? I don't know.
I don't know. It's quite a while.
Oh, it's easy.
If you include Hurricane Katrina and the aftermath and everything, there's never been a story like this.
I think since the Raiders beat the Eagles in Super Bowl 15, probably.
Get out of here. That was expected. Does. True or false? The weather will affect the Saints negatively. We've seen it snowing negatively in this game. True or false?
That's false.
Boy, you play in a dome all the time, and it's freezing.
It's certainly not going to be a positive.
That's a problem.
Players hate
I'm not saying they're going to lose because of it.
Yeah,
no effect. No effect.
Hate it. And I hate when people say, oh, it's cold out here. This is football weather. Shut up. This is not football weather.
The answer is yes. It will. It'll affect it. All right. Well, some of the storylines today, I mean, they're obvious. Headliners, Saints and post-Katrina New Orleans. Adam Vinatieri once over here, now kicking over there, and others. But a link between all 4 teams today? Leave it to Kenny Mayne, signed, sealed, and delivered with a new version on a very old TV show, Peyton's Place.
It's the most bizarre NFL coincidence since 1997, when the New York Giants and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers each drafted a player with the last name Barber, both of whom were born on the same day. Against astronomical odds, each of the 4 teams remaining in the playoffs has a huge connection to the name Peyton. In New Orleans, the Saints are led by NFL Coach of the Year Sean Payton. In Indianapolis, the Colts are quarterbacked by former MVP Peyton Manning. In Chicago, arguably the greatest Bear of all time is the late Hall of Famer Walter Payton. And a couple of years ago, Gary Payton played 77 games for the Boston Celtics. Boston is only a few miles from New England.
It's an honor to be mentioned in the same breath with all them great football Paytons, except that Sean Payton. I never heard of it.
The intrigue of the Payton connection doesn't stop there. In 1987, with Walter Payton and most of the regular players on strike, Sean Payton played quarterback for the Chicago Bears in a replacement game against who else? The New Orleans Saints. The final score of that game was 19-17. If you take the average of those numbers, you get 18. Peyton Manning's number.
It's crazy. At the same time I played 77 games for the Celtics, Jay Payton played 55 games for the Red Sox. Incidentally, both of those numbers are divisible by 11. If I'm not mistaken, he hit a huge homer against the Chicago Cubs that year. Wait till next year, I guess.
Though he holds on tight to his New England roots, Gary Payton now plays in Miami, which shockingly will host the Super Bowl in 2 weeks. Miami was also the collegiate home of Walter Payton's son Jarrett, who last year in Week 4 churned out 37 hard-fought yards against Peyton Manning's Colts.
So do you have anything to add to this madness?
Yeah, the Patriots, they got this long snapper named Paxton.
That's like one letter away from being Peyton. He's the guy famous for doing the snow angel against the Raiders in the Tuck game, and then the turf angel a couple weeks later in the Super Bowl against the Rams. And you know where that game was played? In New Orleans, the very same place where my dad played the Super Bowl against the Patriots 16 years earlier.
And New Orleans is now coached by Sean Payton.
Yeah, and Jay Payton is a Baltimore Oriole. So just imagine how ridiculous this would all be if Baltimore Ravens would have beat the Colts.
Unforgettable sounds from the epic Colts-Pats battles of the past. Straight ahead. Plus, after beating the Patriots the last two meetings, do the Colts now have the mental edge today? Also, 49ers versus Cowboys in the 90s. Colts versus Pats today. Steve Young and Michael Irvin on what it's like to be part of a huge rivalry. And why former Wolverine Tom Brady has become such a big Gators fan this season.
Everybody, remember the 2003 championship game? Peyton Manning sure does. Ty Law still does. When Ty was there, he picked him off 3 times, 4 interceptions in the game. The Patriots won 24-14. Next year, divisional round, the Colts were held to a mere field goal. Corey Dillon had a big game, 144 yards, 20-3. New England won on that cold day in Foxborough. Now, even though some of the cast of characters have changed since 03 and 04, and even though the Colts have won a pair of regular season games against the Pats in 05 and 06 to the tune of 67-41, those playoff games, they linger and linger and they linger. Is today the day that they linger no more, or will they become an odor that can't be eliminated by the Colts? To Indy again, no connection with odor, and Sal Palantonio. Sal?
Good morning, Boomer. This is a game about gamesmanship. Let's start with the Patriots offense. On offense, expect them to use quite a few different elements to try to neutralize the Colts speed rushers and the crowd noise here. No huddle, quick count, silent count, hard count, anything they can do to keep that Colts defense off balance. Now, privately this week, the Patriots officials were very thrilled that Bill Polian, the general manager of the Colts, went on the website and questioned whether or not the officiating last week was a little too lenient, a little too much clutching and grabbing and holding of the wide receivers to try to set back Peyton Manning's passing game. As one Patriots official told me, we're inside their heads, and that is good. Ironically, the referee today is Bill Let Him Play Carollo. 4th fewest flags this year, only 5 pass interference calls all year. Now, Carollo will have an all-star cast behind him, not his usual crew. And I asked Bill Polian about it last night. He said, Boomer, we'll be fine, but this is something game within a game that we'll be watching all day.
Sal, I love that you're giving the refs nicknames now. I mean, that's just great. Now, who gave you that job? I thought it was me. Let him play Carollo.
Hey, it's good.
That's very good. Last 2 meetings, won by the Colts. There you go. They scored over, they averaged 33.5 points a game, and obviously the previous 6 meetings, all wins by the Patriots, about half. Look at the turnovers. I mean, that's night and day. You can see it all. You win, you lose, you lose. I mean, night and day. So, mental edge today. Colts have won the last 2, but these are the playoffs. Is there a mental edge today, Coach? Who has it?
I think it is, and I think really the Colts have it. I think the mindset of the Colts is they refuse to lose today. You can't worry about the past. The only way you can change the past is do something in the present. I think they'll be ready to play today.
I tell you what, I think the mental edge goes to the New England Patriots. I mean, you cannot recover in Indianapolis, Coach, from an 0-6 with 2 regular season games. You lost 2 times in the playoffs to this team. You want to get over this team, you beat them in the playoffs where it counts.
This game is for a trip to the Super Bowl, and I think that's the difference. I don't care what happened in the regular season. I think the edge also goes to the Pats winning 3 of those last 5 championships, those Super Bowls. But I think that it's minimal because the Colts play a similar style in practice. They see a lot of that no huddle and all the gyrations of Peyton Manning, and this is more like playing a division opponent. They play them so often for such big things. It's something always on the line, so I think, yes, edge to the Pats, but minimal going into this game.
Yeah,
I believe also the Patriots do have a mental edge. They have a very stable organization. You look at Bob Kraft, Jonathan Kraft, the ownership. Then you look to Scott Pearley, down to Bill Belichick. They have been in these situations. They have a proven template of what it takes to win. You watch them week in and week out. They have tremendous focus on every single play. If you make a mistake against them, they make you pay for it. I think they have the edge until mentally, the confidence of the Colts can overcome that. The Patriots are a confident football team because they've done it.
You're really
I'm
a name
correct,
dropper.
right?
Why don't you name a couple secretaries? What the heck? Name everybody in the organization.
Because there's a stable organization.
This is about doubt and confidence. There was a doubting football team in Indianapolis. It's no longer doubting. They know what they can do, and they will do it. They can play defense with anybody. They've proven it the last 2 weeks.
Look at the hands of the Patriots. They got rings, world champions on them. That's confidence, coach.
Yeah, but you only got 5 fingers.
Here's the deal. The Colts have waited a long time to have it like this.
Yes.
They have it all lined up. They've won the last 2 games. They're at home where they were 9-0. They've played close games all year. They feel better to prepare for a mental 60-minute chess match. They've done all the homework. Is this the time the Colts ace the test or else? Either way it goes, enjoy the Patriots and the Colts because they have been 2 of the pillars of football brilliance in recent years. Let's listen in.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome as the New England Patriots and Indianapolis Colts get together again. You can't ask for anything better on an NFL Sunday.
Big game